We have State Representative Mary Caferro. Good morning, Mary.
Good morning, Mary.
Good morning, John. How are you doing up there in my hometown?
That's right. Yeah. Well, we've got the Winter Carnival starting in your hometown mighty quick here.
Oh, I love that. One year I was the princess.
Oh, yeah, the princess.
I love it.
Well, you're
Always
always
a princess. Well, you'd come back here, you could be the Queen of
What
Snows.
people say. Oh, no, 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 no.
Mary, look, we got this postcard, all of us here in the state, from the Secretary of State's office telling us that our vote would be secure. Um, Give us some background on all this. Where did all this come from?
Well, first off, thank you for having me. I think it's really important that people understand what's happening. And as you know, John, Montanans value accountability in our government. We value the right to know what our government's doing and how they're spending our money and why. And most important, or equally important, is privacy is very important to us all under our Constitution. And so what happened is I, as the legislator, was hearing from a number of members of the public. They've had questions. They wanted to know, what's this postcard about? Where did it come from? What's the purpose of it? And I could not answer their questions. It's important to answer the public's questions. I've been on the budget committee for 15 years. People call and they say, why did you vote to spend this money this way? I get them answers. And so that's what I was looking for, was answers to the postcard. So the Secretary of State sent out a postcard. It does not have information on it that helps people vote. It really has a political message. And we wanted to know, the public wants to know, how much did this cost? Why? What's the background on the postcard? And the list that the postcard was sent out to. What list was used and why? And so there's all kinds of constitutional issues here. But I'll tell you, the Secretary of State so far, because I sent my inquiry in January 16th, I have not heard back from the Secretary of State. So there has been some press about how much it cost. I want to know, and the public needs to know, where that money came from. Where that money came from, and again, the background. Why is this happening? We need transparency. It's an expectancy of ours. Transparency in government. We have a right to know. It's the people's money. It's taxpayer money, potentially. And no response from the Secretary of State yet answering my inquiry.
We want to be sure everybody understands what we're talking about. This little postcard we got, it was pretty good sized. It had Christi Jacobsen's picture on it next to Donald Trump's picture, and it said something about how they had shared our information with a national database to make sure that we were all legit. That's what we're talking about.
And 467,000 of these things were sent out, according to the Montana Free Press. Cost of close to $200,000. And I thought, is this taxpayer money? Was this a franking privilege or whatever? That was the first thing I thought of when I saw it, because I believe it was on heavy stock. It might have even been glossy. Oh, yeah. I thought, this is expensive.
Well, that is our thinking too, and absent any information or explanation from the Secretary of State, what are we to think? I'll tell you that on the postcard, it appears that the stamp, postage stamp, or the whatever you call it, not a stamp, but the postage marking is from a state warehouse, as well as it would appear that it was printed by the state warehouse also. And so that alone shows us that there was some state money used. The thing is, we want transparency. We have a right to know. It's interesting how people pay taxes. The taxes go to the government, and then the Secretary of State seems to think or is acting in a way that it's her money, and she has no responsibility or accountability to people who paid for that postcard, unless she can explain it differently. But at least in part, it has been paid with taxpayer money. Now, there's the state list, was said, that was the 450,000 some postcards that went out. That list, that voter information list, how did she pick that? And what is the purpose of the postcard? Our Constitution is clear. Montana's Constitution is clear. We have a right to know what our government's up to. We have a right to privacy. Eh, With no transparency or accountability, I would say that the Secretary of State is choosing to not follow our Constitution, and everybody knows how precious our Constitution is to Montanans.
Well, now there's about what 700,000 registered voters in Montana, and this went out to roughly half of them.
Well, this went out to households, and there's
Okay.
there's 458,859 households in Montana,
Okay.
according to information I called up.
So she saved us a little bit of money. Jeez. No, we could have gotten two of them at our house instead of just one.
Well, I hadn't even received the postcard when I started receiving calls from people. People are not happy. They are not happy. The postcard, it does not provide useful information to help voters vote. People are not happy about that. It is a political message. And I don't know. Politicians, I imagine she's planning her next political step, which could be running for governor. I'm not sure about that. But what I do know is there are a lot of questions to be answered, and Christi Jacobsen is not being transparent or accountable for what she did and why.
Mary, what is your understanding of her getting information from the national database to determine who is a legal citizen and who isn't? Did we send information to that database, or did that database send information to us?
Well, and that's important too. A misuse is what I would say of our voter information stateside, and there's this national situation going on too, and it can be that is explained with a bunch of um, not clear statements. And that's another thing. People have been calling saying, what information is on it? There's just so much going on in the community because people don't know. Now, to me, our voter information is private. There's been some of the people that work in the voter uh, industry, the voter government piece, they're saying, well, it's only the last four of your social security number, or the federal government already has your social security number. Oh, you know what? Every time our information is shared, our name, our address, our voting history, our social security number, our birth date, every time that is shared in any database, we have the risk of a breach. And so maybe the IRS has their social security number. This is a whole different piece. And as far as sharing the list, that should not be happening at all. Montanans do not want our information shared. We have an expectation of privacy. However that list got to the federal government and the purpose of that list, I have a hard time believing we don't already have that system in place to find out who should be voting and who should not be voting. As a matter of fact, our clerk of clerk 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 and recorders are very, very good at making sure that the people who are voting are the ones who legitimately should be voting. We have very good election processes in the state. A whole lot of money is being spent. It's a database they point to. A whole lot of money is being spent for, I don't know, they identified 23 people, and those over what period of time they don't say. But as I understand it, it's quite a long period of time. And so we go back to what's the purpose of the postcard? What list did she use and why? Is that a proper use of the list? No. It invades our privacy? Yes. And then second, and even more important, sending our voter information that includes private information off to the federal government. We Montanans just don't stand for that.
You know, you make an interesting point about that, Mary. I'm just thinking back to Real ID. How many decades did we resist uh, real ID because we didn't want the federal government having information off of our driver's licenses.
Well, for as long as we possibly could, and I'll tell you, I'm very proud that I think it was 2005 or 2007, the legislature voted to say no to Real ID. We all knew the value to Montanans to protect our privacy, so we held out as long as we could, and this year was it this year a lot? Well, anyway, 25 or 26, you had to have your Real ID. So that is 20 some years that we held out.
So if we don't want to share information on our driver's licenses, why would we want to share information about our voters?
Absolutely. And really it's not the business of the government to know. It's our government. It's our government. It's our taxpayer money. I'm on the budget committee and I have been for 15 years, and I've been the vice chair in the Senate and the House. I've always found it interesting that taxpayers pay their money and many, in good faith, that we will be responsible with that money. But the money goes to sit to like Secretary of State Christi Jacobsen, and there's a mystery. Like right now, it's a mystery. It's our money. We have a right to know how that money's being spent, and we have an expectation of privacy. So yes, if we didn't want to share the information on the Real ID, we didn't want to have anything to do with the Real ID. It taps you into all this federal stuff. And I would imagine, at least what I'm hearing from people and what many other legislators are hearing, Montanans are not happy about sharing that list with the federal government or using our voter list to target with a political postcard.
One thing that has always kind of bothered me is that when I vote by mail, I have, ever since I stood in line for 3 hours to try to vote when I first moved back to Montana 15 years ago, or actually more like almost 20 years ago now. But okay, so I get 2 or 3 ballots in the mail. I vote on one of them and I send it in. Somebody seems to know which ballot I sent in because I get mailings from candidates of that particular party.
Right. Yeah. There's that happens. And also another thing I've been hearing about is people are tired of receiving the text messages asking for political donations. Now, we this is a tricky piece. We are required by law to report every donation, but then that list, you know, once we report, because we have to have open and fair elections. So then the reverse side of that is, like you said, you turn in your ballot and the Secretary of State, or I mean, the Elections Department can track your ballot to you. The issue becomes that is a sign of what tight elections we have in Montana, what good voter laws we already have. The postcard, like I said, provided no information to help people vote or to answer questions like what you have, which are relevant to Montanans. That postcard had a political message and it was paid for by us. And so there are a lot of legitimate questions like yours that could be answered and should be answered rather than spending taxpayer money on this useless postcard with some list that she should be protecting. She should be protecting our privacy.
So, I'm assuming that you at some point expect that you will get answers from the Secretary of State's office, and we would be we would be pleased if you would let us know what those answers are.
I would love to, John. And to that point, I have requested of the chairman of our audit committee, which is always also in the Constitution, the audit committee, to again hold our government accountable to the public. I have requested that our next audit meeting, Secretary of State Christi Jacobsen show up in person and explain and answer the questions. Hopefully, she'll do it before then. But I have asked in person, and people say, "Well, why did you do this?" Well, I'll tell you what. At our last committee meeting in January 15th, an audit was presented on the Secretary of State's office, and that the audit was not good. It was about financial issues that she's having, and some of her financial statements were so off the mark that it was stated in the audit that we cannot trust her financial statements. So she got an F. In other words, Christi Jacobsen got an F, an audit of an F on financial workings in her office. She did not show up to the audit committee to explain us, to help us understand why, to most importantly, to tell us what they were going to do to cure the problem. So I thought it was essential that I specifically say, we would like, please, Mr. Chairman, put Christi Jacobsen on our agenda so that she can answer our inquiries and the inquiries of the public.
Well, when you get that information back from her, just let me know and we will get you on the air because we really want to know too.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Helena State Representative Mary Caferro, originally from Whitefish. Thanks for spending time with us this morning.
You bet. Thank you.